This is the point on the show. I introduce my guest analyst to give her perspective on the issues so far. Tonight, I'm joined here in the studio by the journalist and Arise News analyst, Dr. Constance Ikokwu. Good to see you and thanks for your time.
Thanks.
It was almost a difficult one, letting Dr. Emigwara, stay on it, because he was really angry, and quite frankly, I think many Nigerians will understand why. We keep talking about the federal government, we forget about our states, and I'm quite sure many Nigerians can't remember their councillors, let alone their state chairman. So with these monies, how can we, Nigerians, follow the money and ensure that the needful is done?
I think the starting point is to do a quick summary, following from what he said. Nigeria, as presently constituted, it will be very difficult, if not impossible, to flourish. I think a lot of Nigerians know that already because you see it every day. The thing is that our so-called leaders have decided to bury their heads in the sand, and so we're just going, like he said, every month to the federal to collect money, and that does nothing for us. There is no country that does well or can do well by expelling its best and promoting a system that the bottom of the class is running the institutions, and then you're trying to destroy the top brains, and they're nowhere to be found. They leave the country quickly because the space is so tight for them. They're not encouraged. And so you have people who have no business being in government, the bottom of the class, that's my theory, the bottom of the class and the top of the class. So the bottom are the ones that, fight it out and they run you. So when you talk about the states, it's not an issue of, okay, we have to follow the money. Yes, you can follow the money. But if there is no incentive to work, if there is no incentive to be productive, you have a system that doesn't encourage productivity. And so the governors come there and, they sit down and they do literally nothing, and the 4 years expires. Having said that, there are some states that you would see progress. Some state governors, if you're lucky, you have a visionary state governor, and so you can glaringly see some sort of movement. I give an instance. When I was doing my youth service in Oran, Akwa Ibom State, Oran is a coastal city. It plays host to the Maritime Academy of Nigeria. A lot of the states, many parts were very rural and was a backwater. Compare it to today, fast forward. In the last couple of years, I think a few years now, you can see that Akwa Ibom has consistently continued to implement a development plan, especially a solid infrastructure roadmap, where you see them opening up villages, opening up towns, and building solid roads. That is a glaring difference from what it used to be, like a complete metamorphosis. That's what happens when you have a governance that has a plan and has a roadmap. And then you come to a state like Lagos, for instance. Lagos is another state where, yes, they have done so well to plug tax loopholes and generate a lot of income. I mean, Lagos is arguably the entertainment, the cultural and financial capital of Africa, with more than 20 million people living there. It's the most populated city in Africa. And then there is also maybe Congo-Kinshasa, which is about 17 million, and Cairo, which is about 9.4 million. Anyway, Lagos has generated a lot of revenue. They generate the most within Nigeria. So they have opened up the Lekki corridors, they have the bus lanes, and there were a couple of things done. However, today, look at the quality of life in Lagos without the money that is generated. It's still not at par with other cities of the world, because we want to style ourselves as the mega city of Africa. The state is still very filthy. You have tankers taking over whole districts, drivers sleeping on the road, and everywhere is dirty. When it rains, it's very difficult to move. And then you have air pollution, a lot of problems and challenges. Can we do better? Yes, we can do better. So at the state level, there is so much work to be done. they have to be held responsible, the state governors.
Well, the good thing here is that you've been able to narrow it down to away from the kind of system we have, that there are some exemptions. And these exemptions will mean that we're talking about quality of mind, of those running the affairs of such states. So it brings us again to how we got here, our democracy. How do we truly get to the point where we get those who truly can be ingenious, creative, and for a moment look at what comes from Abuja as extra to what they can get from their state and help their people?
Adelim didn't mention the fact that the people really have to hold their so-called governors or leaders accountable. It is unfortunate that at the state level, for instance, the state houses of assembly most times are toothless. Most of them are in the pockets of the governors. So when the governor is found wanting, they cannot impeach him and he cannot be removed. We have to get to a stage, like he said, you sign an undertaking. If you're underperforming after 4 years, you need to get the hell out of there. People should be able to do that. But also there is a connection, he says, to your tax money, whether you're paying tax or not, and to the money that comes at the center. So when there's no productivity and the money comes without, work, there is a certain laziness we see across Nigeria. Some states you would say are not viable. There is no state that cannot be viable. But if the money comes freely and flows without work, that's what you get. So we have to get to a stage where people begin to say, you know what, we have to hold you accountable. The institutions have to be strong, the State House of Assembly, for instance. And if the governor is not doing what he's supposed to do, then he needs to be kicked out. It's also our country. It's not a country of only the governor.
It's not a country of only the governors. It's our country. And quickly here, let's talk about councils. As much as they were, hand-tied, President Tinubu, President Buhari at that point in time did say, look, I'm going to give the money directly to the councils so that you can act. Have we seen any kind of change since then?
Yes, there is a problem of state governors holding, the monies that belong to the local governments, which are the closest to the people. Yes, we have that, and there have been attempts to separate these two forms of, they are separate in a way, but to separate the funds so it goes directly to the state government. However, the state governments themselves, in many cases, are totally irresponsible. Some of them come to work, collect the money, and they close for the entire month, and then come back the next month to collect money. So again, it goes to the people. Do the people even understand that they have the power? They are the ones that should or decide whether a person is put in power. Although I also agree with Odilin when he says that during elections, if your life is at risk, you do not want to go to the polls to cast your vote. So that means you are not involved in that democratic process that should bring about change. So these problems are multifaceted, but you cannot give up as a citizen. You cannot give up on your country. And it's very important that we begin to encourage the best and what I call again the top of the class to re-enter government. Most of them are in the private sector, and a lot are leaving the country. They need to jump from the private sector into governance. They are the ones that need to be driving the country, not people that are at the bottom. People that are at the bottom have no business being in governance.
I think it's a fine place for us to leave it. Quite optimistic there, and a lot of Nigerians will share in your optimism. As we critique, we should also be looking out for those that should also go in there and do the job. Dr. Constance Ikokwu, many thanks for your time as always.
Thanks for having me.
Well, that's it on tonight's edition of Arise Prime Time. Do join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here, it's goodbye and thanks for watching.